So that crackpot David Suzuki was mouthing off again. Here he is talking to Evan Solomon on his podcast.
It sounds very much to me like the southern states argued in the 19th century that to eliminate slavery would destroy their economy. It did. It transformed their economy, but they took a big hit. But who would say today that the economy should have come before slavery? I mean,
but you're equating the oil industry to slavery there, and they might take real offense to that.
Well, it is the same thing. They're destroying the very atmosphere that we depend on, and they're telling us their existence or their activity shouldn't come under scrutiny and be impacted when their activity is creating the problem. I keep telling the fossil fuel industry, whoever will listen to me, which isn't many, you're an energy industry. You're not an oil industry, you're an energy industry. Now, surely to God, there's enough imagination to find other ways of extracting that energy, starting with the sun and wind and going to geothermal and tidal, and there are huge numbers of other possibilities.
So hang on. Voluntary jobs, six-figure jobs, great jobs for people of every race and ethnicity. That's like slavery. What? Isn't the key characteristic of slavery that you force people to work for you, that you own them? What on earth is this old kook talking about? In fact, isn't oil and other fossil fuels pretty much the opposite of slavery? Aren't they one of the liberators of all humankind? In the past, we had to rely on human energy to pick crops, for example, to dig, to build. When we think of slaves, we think of the people who built the Egyptian pyramids. We think of slavery in the U.S. to work on farms and plantations. Didn't mechanization and fossil fuels actually help to end that? Now, slavery was ended by legislation and by war and by advancing morality, but in a way it was also ended by a liberation of all humankind from the drudgery of physical labor. You don't need slaves to dig or build. You don't even need as many hard physical laborers anymore. Modern construction, cranes and trucks and heavy equipment will do it. You don't need slaves to pick cotton. Diesel or gasoline-powered tractors and automatic pickers will do it. Slavery was a horrendous moral crime. It still exists in parts of the world, though, Africa, parts of Asia, parts that are universally poor, so having a person as a slave makes economic sense, even if it's immoral. There is semi-slavery, indentured workers in OPEC countries, though. I'm talking about dirt-poor migrant workers from places like Pakistan, the Philippines, India, Palestinians, people who go to countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, all of these rich Persian Gulf oil dictatorships where the local citizens are rich Arab sheiks who never work a day in their lives. All the work in the country is done by imported semi-slaves who have very few civil rights, let alone labor union rights. So yeah, I guess there is some slavery in oil, or near slavery, even in places like Nigeria and all over the Persian Gulf. Why is it that David Suzuki never criticizes OPEC countries, though? Why does he only criticize Canadian ethical oil, where we pay people the most in the world? Well, duh. It's because he's only paid to criticize Canadian oil. He rakes in $9 million a year to his so-called charity, the David Suzuki Foundation. Attacking Canada is part of his mission, not attacking OPEC. I guess in a way, crazy old Suzuki, well, he's a bit of a slave himself, a slave to the foreign anti-oil donors who pay him to attack Canada. For TheRebel.media, I'm Ezra Levant.
Thank you.